Hi, I'm Nikki.
Hi, I'm Kiana.
Hi, I'm Gab.
I'm Nina.
I'm Dane.
I'm Iza.
And we are the WWF-Philippines National Youth Council.
We believe in the power of youth to change the ending for our planet.
To inspire a new generation of leaders for today and tomorrow.
To solve the most pressing issues of our environment.
From our small actions in our own home
to our greatest ideas in our communities.
Together, we are dedicated to conserving nature in the Philippines and beyond.
We, the youth, have the voice and power to change the world.
And we need to stand and act together, now more than ever, for the Filipino people, to protect our land and our seas. We are the youth for the youth.
The Filipino youth for the environment.
I am protecting life on our planet.
Day by day, with every single thing I do.
I conserve the world's biggest forests.
I safeguard the rivers
and oceans.
I stand up for coral reefs,
rainforests,
tundras,
deserts,
and grasslands.
I work with communities in the Amazon,
the Arctic,
the Congo,
and the Himalayas.
I collaborate with the biggest companies on Earth
to make their processes and their products more sustainable.
I influence governments
to create policy that recognizes and respects
the importance of nature.
I give a voice to all animals who call Earth their home.
I'm protecting life on our planet.
But because I'm with WWF,
I am not doing it alone.
6,000 staff.
6 million members.
In over 100 countries.
For more than half a century.
Businesses,
foundations,
governments,
communities,
individuals,
and one iconic panda.
Together,
we are protecting life on our planet,
including our own.
Because together,
anything is possible.
Hi, I'm Iza, and I want a world of climate-smart cities. Cities are home to over half of the world's population and contribute to over 70% of all emissions. We live in cities, but unsustainable and poorly planned cities are destroying our shared home. Together, we can still make our cities planet-friendly. support green technologies, switch to green lifestyles, and lobby with your local government for more sustainable policies. Let us help our cities work in harmony with nature. How about you? What world do you want to live in? Use the hashtag #SpeakUpForNature and tell us what world you want to live in. Speak up for nature today.
Hi, I'm Gab Mejia, and I want a world where there's no extinction. I'm a conservation photographer and environmental storyteller, documenting and highlighting the stories of our critically endangered and endemic species in the Philippines, such as our beloved tamarao and the Philippine eagle, to give a voice to our amazing, unique, and fragile wildlife. Animal populations have declined by 68% in half a century. Species are going extinct at an incredible rate. Soon, we will be at risk as well. We can stop this. We need to protect our ecosystems today so we can all share this world in the future. How about you? What world do you want to live in? Use the hashtag #SpeakUpForNature and tell us what world you want to live in. Speak up for nature today.
Hi, I'm Nina, and I want a world who sees are rich with life. I'm a marine biologist and I study the importance of our marine resources. 75% of Philippine fisheries are overfished. 33% of our reefs have disappeared in the past 20 years. We are destroying our seas, taking livelihood away from those who rely on them. How about you? What world do you want to live in? Use the hashtag #SpeakUpForNature and tell us what world you want to live in. Speak up for nature today.
Hi, I'm Dane, and I want a world where everyone has access to clean water. I am currently involved in scientific researches in the protection and conservation of forest ecosystems. And with the help of environmental education, we want to engage communities in the protection and conservation of forest ecosystems and their forest resources. According to a scientific research, we lose about 21 million hectares of forest cover each year. Forests provide us with the water that we drink, and without our forests and watersheds, we have no access to clean water. By preventing deforestation, we protect our water supply, so let's protect our forest ecosystems so everyone has access to clean water. How about you? What world do you want to live in? Use the hashtag #SpeakUpForNature and tell us what world you want to live in. Speak up for nature today.
Hi, I'm Kiana.
Hi, my name is Nikki,
and I want a world
that listens to the youth.
The youth sector has been steadily influencing how we view citizenship action and accountability this past few years. And now, more than ever, is the right time for them to be able to communicate with everyone how they view themselves as the future decision makers and caretakers of the planet.
This Earth Hour, I implore world leaders to listen to young people. There is so much passion going around and so many incredible ideas that can help us all make this world a more sustainable place to be.
How about you? What world do you want to live in?
Share with us your thoughts using the hashtag #SpeakUpForNature.
Speak up for nature today.
Dear fellow youth, our Earth, home to millions of different life species. We are but one of them. And yet, it is our actions that have wreaked the most havoc on this planet. All the benefits and advancements of our way of life have come at a high cost. Climate change is inextricably linked to some of the most pressing issues facing the human race. And it is only by using our voices that we have a fighting chance at a better future. Renowned naturalist and environmentalist Sir David Attenborough once said, "It's surely our responsibility to do everything within our power to create a planet that provides a home not just for us, but for all life on Earth." We, the WWF-Philippines' National Youth Council, want to call on the youth. We want to call on the other young people out there to lobby and urge our government to make stronger commitments to climate action and environmental protection, and to act on them. We call on all Filipinos to speak out and take action on behalf of all our environmental issues. The 21 million hectares of forest cut down each year, the 9.4 million tons of plastic that enter our oceans annually, the 5 million Filipino families that went hungry last year, and the millions of species that are no longer with us. Let us push for a green and sustainable future of reduced waste, zero extinction, and where our carbon footprint is halved. Let us be guided by science and reach out and listen to all stakeholders of Philippine society, most especially the least heard and the most vulnerable, because our voices can change the world. Let us work as one nation to meet our environmental commitments by the year 2030, in order to build a future where mankind lives in harmony with nature, with the millions of other species that call this planet their home. As conservationist and anthropologist Dr. Jane Goodall once said, "The least I can do is speak out for those who cannot speak for themselves." So let us come together and speak our truths. Yours, the WWF-Philippines National Youth Council. Ask yourself, what world do you want to live in? Speak up for nature.
Happy Tuesday, everyone! Thank you for choosing to spend your weekday evening with us. This is Iza Nazal Habunan.
And I'm Nina Lim. We're from the WWF Philippines National Youth Council. And we welcome you to the third episode of this year's Conservation Conversation.
Conservation Conversation is the Worldwide Fund for Nature Philippines' live stream series, which aims to encourage discourse on environmental conservation and active participation from the youth sector.
As the weight of environmental issues presses ever harder on humankind, it's important for new voices to be added to the discussion. And who else better include than us, the youth?
And speaking of youth, we are joined today by a member of the youth movement who uses his platform to talk about various environmental causes he believes in. And he's very flattered that we call him a member of the youth, and I'm sure everyone knows him. Please welcome our WWF Youth Ambassador, Robbie Domingo.
That is one reason why I love the both of you. Okay? When he said, speaking of youth, sabi ko, okay, that's me. But yay, it's so nice to be with vibrant energy and with young leaders who really have that heart, no? So to Mina and Isa, maraming salamat. To everyone who's here with us, we got 65 people currently over at Facebook, and I'm sure tataas pa yan later on kasi we're gonna be having a great discussion. Pero alam nyo, grabe no, it's our third conversation pa lang. Parang ang dami na nangyari, ang dami na naganap.
In 2021, parang ganon.
June lang.
Oo nga, but you know what? Even after this pandemic, and I hope it finishes soon, no? We're gonna be having this one. So yeah, congratulations to WWF Philippines for mounting this pandemic project that we have right now. But to everyone who is with us in our stream. I hope you guys interact with us by putting all of your questions and insights on our discussion, and even share this live stream to your friends and family so that they could all tune in and be aware and learn from all of our guests.
Okay, pero bago ang lahat, let's have a quick shout out to our viewers here on Facebook. So, let us know where you're watching from para mabigyan kayo ng shout out ni Kuya Robbie.
Yun. I'm seeing familiar names right here to Bill Sikat. Yan ang palaging kasama natin sa ASAP. We got Alex R. Monteza who, whoa, giving us lots of stickers. Thank you. Maraming salamat. And to Eve Antisoda, Lee Feng Nunez, let's go. Let's go. We're gonna be having a great discussion. So, sa lahat ng mga kasama natin dito, to Mina and to Iza, my question is, game ka na ba?
Game na.
Game
na.
Yes. So again, thank you everyone, yung mga binati ni Robbie and those who are with us on the live stream. Thank you so much for joining us today. So for tonight's episode, we will be talking more about the progress, challenges, and ways forward of the Philippines in achieving its targets and commitments to sustainable urban development, and of course, what the youth can do to support the initiative. So we invited 3 special guests to join us today, and I'm very, very excited to hear from them, especially because this topic is very close to my heart, because I myself am an environmental planner. So I'm really excited. So allow me to begin by introducing our first guest. He is also an environmental planner and an experienced researcher and consultant. He holds a PhD, in spatial planning at the Technical University of Dortmund in Germany. His extensive portfolio includes research and publications on small island landscapes, spatial dynamics, land use, urban and regional planning, ecotourism, and climate change in the Philippines and the Asia-Pacific region. Wow. He advocates for equal representation of various stakeholders in the community, including, of course, the youth. He's now the chairperson of the Department of Community and Environmental Resource Planning, College of Human Ecology in the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Edgar M. Reyes Jr.
Hi, Dr. Reyes.
Doc.
Hello.
We're seeing him right now. Hi, Doc. Thank you
Hi,
so
sir.
much for saying yes to Chichi, to WWF, our panda right here. Okay? Maraming salamat.
Fun fact.
Or Iza.
Edgar was my college professor.
Wow.
Ooh.
Wow. New music. Reunited.
Yeah, I know.
We're gonna be learning a lot from our professor right here. Pero maraming salamat po, Sir Professor Edgar. Okay?
Just sir, it's fine.
Sir Edgar. Okay? Maraming salamat, Doc. Our next panelist actually holds a master's degree in business management from the Asian Institute of Management, a bachelor's degree in economics from the Ateneo de Manila University, and 3 years of law studies at the University of Santo Tomas. Ayaw niyang mag-aral at all. But my gosh, creds right here. After serving as UN Habitat Knowledge Manager from 2007 until 2012, he assumed his current post as the country program manager of UN Habitat in the Philippines, the United Nations program working towards a better urban future, with this mission to promote socially and environmentally sustainable human settlements development and the achievement of adequate shelter for everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to all stand up and kneel before Mr. Christopher E. Rolio.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm so glad to be speaking to such a young crowd with fresh ideas. I want to be inspired also by the youth.
We're gonna be having like a plethora of questions for you, sir, for sure. Si Mina kanina pa nagdi-DM sa akin yan eh. Ang dami nang gustong itanong.
Ano naman yung tanong?
Mamaya.
Okay. Puno-puno yung mamaya. But Sir Chris, maraming salamat po.
Alright, so we're very honored to have you here, Sir Chris. So our final guest is an environmental planner and real estate appraiser with more than 21 years of combined experience working in the academe, government, private, and NGO sectors, focusing on trade, banking, economic, and business research, and even taught business, tourism, and environmental management subjects in universities in Manila. He obtained his Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, MBA, and postgraduate units in education and urban and regional planning from UP Diliman, and his doctorate units from San Beda University. Ang bigato ng mga guests natin today.
Sobra.
So he is currently a housing and home site regulation officer at the Environmental Land Use and Urban Planning and Development Bureau of the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, or DHSUD. So a virtual round of applause for environmental planner Peter Daniel Frahinal.
Romina, thank you, Isa, and thank you, Robbie, for that wonderful introduction and generous introduction. It's like what Sir Chris said, being with the youth is very energizing and refreshing at this early hours of the evening.
Actually, truth be told, I'm so pressured right now because we got three professors, three people filled with credentials, and I will be preparing good questions for them later on. Baka mamaya masabi nito talagang taong to hindi nag-aaral. Oh.
Right.
Pero
Talagang
thank you,
what
thank
a
you so
lineup, right? What a lineup we have tonight. And talagang we should really take this opportunity, sabi nga ni Robbie, to write down our questions, especially our audience later on. Kasi yung mga speakers natin are very credible and knowledgeable on what we have. So I guess we're officially ready. Since we all know our speakers tonight, we're officially ready to kick off the discussion. And we will be hearing a brief presentation from Sir Peter of DHSUD to serve as a situationer outlining the creation of the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, the National Urban Development and Housing Framework, and of course the department mandates and current projects and collaborations that they have with other institutions in support of achieving the goal of sustainable Philippine cities. The floor is yours, Sir Peter.
So thank you, Isa. So let me just share my screen for everyone. So there, can you see my presentation, everyone? Okay, so I hope you can hear me loud and clear. So again, I'm ENP Peter Frahinal from the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development. So this is just a brief outline. So I'll just be discussing about our newly created agency. Actually, I think it's the youngest national government agency in the Philippines. And also one of our projects and collaboration with our developmental partners, one of which is the UN Habitat Philippines, of which Sir Chris Rolyu, one of our co-panelists, is the head. So this is the full name of our department, or DSUD as we call it. So Republic Act 11201 was signed into law on February 14, that's a Valentine, by President Rodrigo R. Duterte, which created our department. This is a merger of the Housing and Urban Development Coordinating Council and the Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board. Under this law, the HLURB was reorganized as the Human Settlements and Adjudication Commission, or HSA. So RA number 11201 also grants administrative supervision over the National Housing Authority, or NHA, National Home Mortgage Finance Corporation, or NHMFC, Home Development Mutual Fund, HDMF, or Pag-ibig Fund, and the Social Housing Finance Corporation, or SHFC. So what I'd just like to impart that with the creation of this department, the very core of its creation, chiefly the vision and mission, there is also the mention of sustainable communities and human settlements, as you can see in this slide. So our vision is to become an institution of highly dedicated and accountable public servants committed improving the quality of life of all Filipinos. So we have two missions there. As you can see, we'd like to achieve sustainable and resilient communities and empower stakeholders. Now, this is one of our main collaborations with the UN Habitat. Again, I'd like to thank Sir Chris and his wonderful colleagues there at UN Habitat for helping us craft the latest iteration of the NUDHF. So what is this NUDHF? So the Urban Development and Housing Act of 1992, or RA 7279, mandates the HLURB under the direction of the HUDC to formulate a national urban development and housing framework in coordination with all local government units and other concerned public and private sectors. This is stated in Article 3, Section 6 of said Republic Act or law. Further, the preparation of the NUDHF must occur every 6 years and alongside the medium-term Philippine Development Plan, now called the Philippine Development Plan or PDP. So the NUDHF vision adopts the country's urban development vision as articulated in the Philippine New Urban Agenda or NUA. It also supports the aspirations of Filipinos as stated in Ambition 2040 of the PDP. So this is our vision, to have better, greener, smarter human settlements and urban systems in a more inclusive Philippines. We've actually qualified some of the words in our vision. For example, what does it mean to be better? It means to be globally competitive, economically vibrant, and livable. What does it mean to be greener? It means that cities, municipalities, and settlements are environmentally sustainable, climate resilient, and safe. How about smarter? It means being connected physically, spatially, and also digitally. A more inclusive Philippines means that equitable, participatory, and provides universal access to quality basic services. And all of the vulnerable sectors like children, women, the elderly, and persons with disabilities are protected. It equalizes access to livelihood opportunities, and it enables our ISFs or informal settler families to transform in the metropolises, living their lives with more pride and dignity. So I just like to mention the 6 main principles of the NUDHF, but specifically I'd like to focus on the 6th principle, which is sustainable urban environment. So what does it mean to achieve a sustainable urban environment? So what is good with this latest iteration of the NUDHF is that it's not just a list of plans and principles, but we actually have specific strategies on how to achieve these principles. For example, for sustainable development, the 6 key NUDHF principles shall guide all actors and stakeholders to implement strategies towards the achievement of the vision. So for the 6th principle, this means having sustainable use of air, water, land, and resources in urban development, protecting our ecosystems and urban biodiversity, having efficient, affordable, and clean energy, and having sustainable production and consumption. So we should ensure the protection of our ecosystems and biodiversity, as well as promote clean, sustainable, and responsible use of these resources. So I'd just like to conclude with this framework. So in summary, the NUDHF 2017-2022 was legally mandated to guide urban and urbanizing areas in achieving the Philippine vision for sustainable urban development. So it adopts the country's urban development vision as articulated, like I mentioned before, in the NUA. It also supports the aspirations of Filipinos as stated in Ambition 2040 of the PDP. So as you can see, it is coherent with all the visions set in this urban agenda. So we should ensure the protection of our clean, sustainable, and responsible use of resources to make our communities resilient. So again, let us all support and work for its adoption and application so that in all urban development plans, policies, programs, and projects. So before I continue, I'd like to leave with a quote from the famous American futurist Alex Steffen. So I think it's more applicable to the youth, and I hope you will be inspired by it. He said, "To be young and aware is to know you're being lied to know that a bright green future is possible, to know that we can reimagine the world. You can reimagine the world, rebuild our cities, redesign our lives, retool our factories, distribute innovation and creativity, and all live in a world that is not only better than the alternative, but much better than the world we have now." So adding a local flavor and getting two quotes from our national hero, my idol, a fellow Gemini who is celebrating his 160th birthday this Saturday, June 19. I have two quotes from him. So he said, the youth is the hope of our future. So I hope with that, all of us will have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir
Thank
Peter.
you. Wow, thank you so much, Sir Peter. So as we can see dun sa presentation ni Sir Peter, that the topic sustainable urban development actually has a lot of relatable parts to it, no? And that it's very comprehensive as a topic, no? So I'm sure we'll have a very good discussion in a bit. So even with that brief presentation, I'm sure our audience and us here already learned a lot about the situation and initiatives on sustainable urban development in the Philippines. So it's nice to know, no, that the Philippines is making major progress already in achieving sustainable cities. And personally, from a youth perspective, the intensifying climate crisis that is causing unprecedented and irreversible damage to the environment is actually driving a lot of young people or young population to urban areas, like just like what happened in Yolanda, no? So we know that a lot of youth were forced to move to urban areas to flee from that type of hazards that are present in the far-flung areas. So one of the common challenges that the youth face in Philippine cities, here in Metro Manila especially, is that urban space is unfortunately becoming less and less accessible. What do you think about that, Robbie?
Well, honestly, Isa, I have lots of thoughts about this one. Unang-una sa lahat, syempre, I'm trying to really decipher and acknowledge the true meaning of better, greener, smarter, and inclusive. And thanks to the presentation given to us by Sir Peter, talagang nabigyan ng linaw yon. And also that wonderful plan for 2040. Bittersweet for me because when I think about 2040, I think about my age. But I know for sure with these plans secured, and if we are going to be hammering down great policies for the youth, then we know that it will be really a better, greener, smarter, and a more inclusive society for everyone, no? Pero we got lots of facts right here, and this might scare you. So to all of the viewers right now, please listen carefully. According to actually Asian Development Bank, our ADB, the average age of those who live in in our cities are getting younger, with a majority of the 3 billion people under the age of 25. And more than half of the global youth population is living in Asia and the Pacific. So really, I find our topic very timely because the youth indeed have a huge and essential role in impacting sustainable urban development. We got lots of we got lots of notes right here. Pero later on, ilalagay po natin yan sa ating discussion later on, okay?
Yeah.
Actually, sa Pilipinas, Robbie, did you know that 1/3 of the population is the youth? So, napakalaking window of opportunity nito. And we cannot miss the point that young people have a completely different approach to project and development itself. Youth leadership is much less hierarchical and more adaptive, therefore more dynamic in a sense. So they are quite easy to get involved with actually. The UN even said na in 2015, upon the creation ng Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, that the youth are the torch bearers of the 2030 agenda. So, ikaw, Robbie, Iza, ako, kasama na tayo doon. Sige, pati na rin sina Sir Chris, Sir Peter, at Doc Edgar na youth at heart.
Right. Yeah, very well said, Nina. And definitely engaging youth sa mga ganitong discussion, no, it does make the goal of creating sustainable urban development or sustainable cities rather na more achievable. Kasi yun nga, sabi nga ni Robbie, we're bulk of the population already eh. So it's just logical to involve the youth at this point in time in this sort of topic. No? And at this point, I would like to call back on our virtual stage our esteemed panel of speakers to bring more meat to the discussion, syempre, to bring us their expertise to the table. And in the presentation earlier, in a developing country such as the Philippines, ayan na sila.
Pero I wanna just talk about yung sinabi ni Iza na tama yung ano eh, yung that classic quote coming from our national hero.
Right.
Ang kabataan, ang pag-asa ng bayan. 'Di ba? And whatever happens, kasi it's perpetual, you know? When they grow old, they're gonna be the leaders. At yung susunod na generation, yung kabataan, will be the next hope for our country, for our world. So saktong-sakto nga lang yung mga quotes na ginamit dito.
Right. At saka parang sometimes we think that the quote is overused in a way, no? Na parang, it's always said naman in mga inspirational talks, but no, it's true. And given nga yung statistics na sinabi kanina, it's, well, factual pala talaga na kabataan ang pag-asa ng bayan. And on that note, dun sa presentation natin earlier, no, so I would like to start asking, you know, our many questions that we have in our minds right now. So, gusto ko lang malaman kasi sir, mga sir, na in a developing country such as here in the Philippines, we all know na you know, our cities aren't that as smart as our rich neighbors, no, aren't as sustainable yet. We are, yes, we are making huge progress, no, with developing our cities, but what do you think is the biggest obstacle that we're encountering as a developing country for prompt and effective implementation of the country's plans for sustainable cities? Siguro we could start with Sir Peter, our presenter.
We go by age.
You want to go with that track, okay? We go by age. I don't know who to call. I think Nina knows our list the best. No, sige, let's start with, kasi kanina ko pa nakikita, si Sir Chris, handang-handang sumagot. So, Sir Chris?
Yeah, thank you. When we talk about obstacles, parang ang dami, no? I'd really like to see our cities as really the engines of growth, the sites of opportunity, but there are a lot of challenges. So it's good that we have this conversation with the youth because, yeah, right now we are actually facing a big demographic dividend for the country. We have a youth bulge, but the window of opportunity of turning this youth demographic into an asset is very slim. The window is closing. And therefore, at this point, we should seize as soon as possible the opportunity to empower our youth to become assets rather than problems later on. Because if we miss this opportunity, we have a huge problem of having a youth that is not contributing to the maximum potential to the development of the country. Before I proceed, I think this discussion is really very pertinent because last June 5 was our World Environment Day. June 8 was also our World Oceans Day. And the whole June is actually the Philippine National Environment Month. And when we talk about urban environment, we're not just talking about cities, but cities and every place and every system around it, with cities as the center body of a lot of these systems. in fact, just last June 8th, when we did the World Oceans Day, we really harnessed the youth through a youth hackathon to solve many of the problems. One of the biggest, when we talk about obstacles and problems, one of the biggest problems we face now is really our plastics. No, the based on some studies, the Philippines is actually the third largest contributor globally to the plastic pollution in the world, and plastic is a reflection of how we live our lives now. And of course, the youth is living that life now. So the way we live our life is also problematic, but it's also the solution to how we improve our world in the future.
Well, we had that certain advocacy here, and it's ongoing sa ating WWF Philippines. Ayoko ng plastic campaign. We're referring to single-use plastic. But I want to touch up on that one a bit, no? Kasi yung mga kabataan Pinoy ngayon, especially, you know, we're bombarded with lots of promos, with lots of deals online, and pag nasa bahay ka, especially if you're working from home or having some school at home moments, can't help but get stuff from, you know, online shopping as well, di ba? And it's a good thing that, you know, we can still continue with our economy dahil doon. But the one of the cons is that yung plastic, yung wrapping. I love getting my stuff delivered, but I don't want that much plastic. So may mga moves na bang ginagawa yung mga iba't ibang agencies or certain policies in order to tell these big brands, these big companies na, hey, we appreciate your effort, you're making waves, but you should control the amount of plastic you generate, especially the single-use ones.
Yeah. So there's actually a lot of initiatives now, and there's also a lot of initiatives on unnecessary single-use plastics, because there are really situations where you really need, for example, single-use, like your face mask and
PPEs,
you know, health PPEs, etc. But indeed, during the hackathon, you'd be surprised. Many of the entries in the hackathon, and in fact, one of the winning entries addresses that very specific question on single-use packaging for home delivery. I am not going to share the idea now because that's their idea and that can be developed. And there are a lot of interest already in terms of, you know, moving forward with that idea into actual implementation on the ground. And that's why I am very full of, you know, inspiration and hope that the youth really has fresh, innovative ideas and using technology as part of the solution, because they're comfortable with technology and they're the ones, you know, living it in their daily lives, you know, plastic, and therefore the solution is also with them. They have the energy, they have the creativity and the comfort in the use of new technology.
I'm so excited to hear that one. Nabitin ako, but you know, I perfectly understand that could be not just a billion-dollar idea, but really an idea which really can save the world right now.
Yeah.
Maraming salamat, Sir Chris. Isa?
Yeah, and I would like to add also that there's already a bill lodged at the Senate. I'm not sure if there's also a version for the House. I mean, for the lower house, but at the Senate, there's already a pending bill. But the sad thing is, it's been pending for quite a long time. I mean, okay, not as long as the National Land Use Act naman na pending siya for since forever, but you know, it's quite an urgent issue, especially now amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, na talagang single-use plastic use has been sky high because of the pandemic. So I hope our lawmakers put due urgency in passing that bill. Maybe we could also hear a few insights from our panelists on yun nga, yung going back dun sa question kanina na yung obstacles, yung challenges, what do you think are hindering the Philippines from implementing this framework that was discussed? Anyone could go ahead.
I saw Sir Peter. Sir Peter?
Yeah, go.
Words, political will. So that's, you know, cliche, but we have a surfeit of plans. We have all kinds of plans, from the local plans, national plans. but are these being implemented? So as an environmental planner, we have experienced such a thing called the politics of planning, meaning that it could be influenced by our local chief executives to deviate from well-made plans. For example, in Metro Manila, it already had a plan back, I don't know, in the 70s and even before that. If we could have just followed it. Okay, so I think things would have been better today.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
I,
Yeah.
I'm loving you even more, Sir Peter. In fact, one of our bosses, si Miss Cheska, right here, so WWF, trying to message me, ops. I want to say lots of things, but since you said that one,
Yeah.
the solution that we have as members of the youth, Kapataang Pinoy, you know what to do. Register to vote. Okay, that is one weapon that you can they can use, especially for the upcoming elections next year.
Yeah. And I would like to add also, kasi I'm from the local government also eh. I work for a certain local government here in Metro Manila. And we engage with a lot of um, fellow local governments. No, not just here in Manila, but across the Philippines. And it's very challenging or frustrating rather to see na not a lot of cities and municipalities have their comprehensive land use plans. It's sad. But because as a background for non-technical people, yung comprehensive land use plan is parang the mother of all plans in the local government alongside a comprehensive development plan. And it lays out your city's priorities in terms of urban development, in terms of land use, in terms of how you zone your areas in the city. And unfortunately, a lot of LGUs still don't have that. So that's right. Political will really is one of the issues here. What do you think, Sir Edgar? I'm sure you have a lot to say.
Yes, Isa. Actually, Isa provided somewhat general context of this issue already. If we're going to try to really digest the perspectives in achieving sustainable cities, we must recognize that it is essentially a process with a lot of checklists. So parang ganon. So when we are studying ano yung mga certain checklists na meron tayo for us to be able to achieve a sustainable city. And that's why it's often asked about these obstacles in terms of effective implementation. And implementation is actually a function of governance and at the same time citizens' engagement, including stakeholders such as youth. Therefore, obstacles, and I would want to change it as promoters, not really obstacles into the effective implementation of sustainable cities, lie in some elements. Actually, nababanggit na rin nung ating panelist. So, yun nga, cliche as it may seem, but the knowledge, skills, and actually the attitude on sustainable cities or environmental planning per se is a critical baseline. Knowledge and skills of our local chief executives and other LGU implementers are actually essential, as well as the attitude, or we better term that as the political will, sinasabi nga natin, which will elicit and really walk the talk in achieving our desired outcomes for sustainable city. Second is the citizens' engagement. Citizens should be more or less active in creating active participation in community building, especially in sustainable cities. And we should be not just mere watchers, but at the same and receivers of information. But at the same time, we should try to promote a planning culture wherein which we, even the youths, should be responsible in actively engaging and collaborating with the different developments in the community. So this is further inculcating the culture of planning in the Philippines. Yun nga, nasabi na rin ni Isa, local governments are required to at least provide for a comprehensive land use plan, but still a lot are not able to do this activity. So that's the two. And then maybe another overarching aspect of it is that when we talk about sustainable cities, the support infrastructure and technology are actually equally critical to look at. We need to ask ourselves, resources wise, are we capable of really doing it? In this era of data driven environmental planning, where bases for action and evaluation are hard facts and figures, many cities and municipalities are still struggling to keep up. So especially in this time of the pandemic, for example, where quick and reliable information is essential in decision-making process. So those are just some of the thoughts that I am thinking on the obstacles that really hinder us in achieving sustainable cities.
Well said, sir. Yeah, I agree. What do you think about that, Robbie?
Oh, planning culture. Definitely, I will keep that in mind. Most especially with the things that you have said. No, before when you register to vote, make sure yung mga tumatakbo merong comprehensive land use plan. Okay, thank you so much for sharing that information
Yeah.
so that we can be more critical. And I was thinking kasi baka yung problema information accessibility or inaccessibility on our end, but that's in a smaller scale. The macro scale, syempre, people who have power should do something about it. And what do you think should be the case in order for them to really push these policies? Is it a matter of priorities, urgency, or where should that certain push come from? Sir Peter?
Okay. We can mention a few, but on top of my head, I think the implementation of the Environmental Planning Act in 2013, I think, and incidentally, it was signed during my birthday, May 27. That is one concrete step, promoting environmental planning and environmental planning culture in the Philippines. So it's very heartening that there's an explosion actually of licensed environmental planners in the Philippines. Back in the early 1990s, there were just about 20 or less than 100, but now I think we're at 6,000. So I hope this 6,000 strong environmental planners would have it in their heart and passion to help promote a culture of environmental planning. And also with this act, there's also the creation of a undergrad course in environmental planning. So please, if you are in high school and looking for a course that's worthwhile and for the country, choose an environmental planning course.
Well, 2030 is, people are gonna say, layo pa yan, pero ang lapit na. It's just around the corner, no? And I really do hope that certain a plan or a certain idea turns into reality, especially for our Philippines. Okay, we've been talking about certain obstacles hindering that sustainable and better, greener, smarter, more inclusive urban society for us. But let me ask Sir Peter, Sir Chris, and Sir Edgar, of course, what are the other practices na pwede natin makakuha from other countries? Practices which we can adapt easily, especially for developing countries like us. Are there certain models that we can follow?
Well, I'm reminded by this quote. I forgot the speaker. I think he's a Peruvian official or something. I'm just paraphrasing here that a successful country does not mean a country where poor people drive around in cars, but it's where rich people use public transport. And then on a practical side, for me, wish ko lang yung cities natin would be walkable, pedestrian friendly, bike friendly. My God, parang I've been blessed to go to other countries. I just travel through public transport. Sana magawa natin yun dito. Okay, so that it will be more inclusive. Transportation will be democratized, meaning everyone will be easily accessible to different places and not just contained to a certain few sectors of our society.
Well, if
Right.
that happens,
Yeah.
magkakaroon tayo ng bagong definition ng ano, no? Freedom. Belated happy Independence Day. Yan ang isa sa mga pangarap natin. Yes,
Yeah,
Isa.
yeah, I agree. Yung sinabi ni Sir Peter na nagkaroon siya ng chance na makapunta sa ibang bansa, no? And experience, better transportation, better cities that are very walkable, comfortable to walk around, And it's sad for other people who don't have that privilege, that opportunity to have a glimpse of what it's like to have a sustainable city or a smart city. And that should be the motivation that we keep in mind always, especially yung mga kasama nating experts, no, as they work, whether in government, in CSO, in NGO, or in the academia, yun yung motivation natin to give these people who don't have the chance to go abroad, to bring abroad here to the Philippines, that experience gawin natin dito. And hopefully by 2030 or 2040 dun sa NUDHF ay ganun na yung Pilipinas.
Wow.
Pwede ba ako mag-follow up dun sa sinabi ni Sir Peter? Follow-up question.
Of course.
So, ang ganda ng quote na sinabi niya, no? Parang naisip ko, is it still possible for Metro Manila to be more people-oriented than car-oriented in terms of mobility? Ako kasi, preferred mode of transport ko, sana ay bike. And I think, karamihan na rin kasi ng kabataan ngayon nag-shift na to biking. So, natatakot lang ako kasi there's just too many cars and high traffic dito sa Metro Manila. So, possible pa ba na makamit natin na walkable na yung streets natin, lalo na sa Metro Manila? So, Sir Peter, masasagot mo po ba yan?
Yeah, not to mention the pollution, no?
Yeah.
I think having this bus carousel implemented by MMDA is an admirable project. So I think we're on our way. So maybe next, widening bike lanes and then investing more in good sidewalks. Alam mo, di ba, sabi ko nga, tatagalog na lang ako, yung mga government officials natin, they've been through learning experiences in other countries, but hindi nila, iba yung nakita nila doon, idala dito, di ba? So yung nga parang iba, you've been to their airport, nag-train ka lang, down up to their business district, up to their suburbs through public transport lang, di ba? So sana yun maging walkable. Kasi sa akin personally, it's a gauge of a city that is livable, that is inclusive.
Yeah. Maybe it's also a function of how the city was planned and built.
Right.
The need for mobility from place A to place B is because you don't have what you need in place A in the first place. Now, if we design our cities to be integrated, such that you don't have to move to place B to get what you need, to do what you need to do, then you won't have this kind of traffic problem, right? So it really looks at multi-centricity of how we design our cities, to have integrated communities, to have inclusive communities. If you go to other countries, we don't have enclaves like Wakwak or Forbes, where large gated communities are very impermeable to public transportation. And you have to go to court so that you can make, for example, McKinley accessible to public transportation. Imagine without that, So large parts of the cities are actually cut off from each other because of these impermeable, large, rich, gated subdivisions. But if we design our cities such that it becomes inclusive, we have more public space, there's more connectivity, so cars actually don't get funneled into limited streets and therefore causing so much transportation, then that could be, one way of doing it. That's why it's really important to look at the basic principles when we do planning, because planning is is a process. Yes, everybody has to be involved. But what values do we infuse when we plan? We make sure that our cities are inclusive, connected, and it serves everybody, and it is resilient. It's so difficult to see that every year we are visited by typhoons, and every year we have flooding, as if we can't solve it. But really, the solution is how we build our cities. How do we make our cities like sponge cities, so that we don't have impermeable streets that with a lot of water runoff, because water do not go down to the to the ground and recharge our aquifers and things like that. But so there we have lost a lot of opportunities because of the way our built environment has been built over the years. But we can change that over time by following certain principles, approaches, and tools, which we learn also from other countries. But we also have indigenous knowledge within us that we have forgotten over the years, because we have lost our sense of value when it comes to what is a good, inclusive, resilient cities.
I love that. Wow.
I know,
Thank you,
right?
Sir Chris and Sir Peter.
Grabe, no?
Okay, so ang
And
dami, ang
also,
dami mong kailangan isipin, no?
Yeah.
Ang
even
dami, ang daming considerations.
ang daming concerns, ang daming issues na pinagdadaanan ng Pilipinas. And it really starts with planning. If you plan properly, then you would not have these problems, these obstacles.
Yeah,
I mean,
and with that,
posible magkaroon in the future, pero hindi
right.
ganito katindi, and it's not gonna recur. Tulad nung electricity kanina. Ay, sorry. Okay, nag-message yung boss ko, ops. Okay, I will stop right there. Pero akala ko si Sir Chris kanina huhugot eh. Yung sinabi na, oo, kung wala si A nito, pupunta ka sa B. Kaya ka naghahanap, di ba?
Grabe siya.
Yun pala.
Ganun
Grabe
yun.
siya.
Huwag ganun.
Actually, yun nga, yung sinabi niyo na ang dami palang problema, no, na sa planning. So, welcome guys to the world of environmental planners. This is what we do. This is what we have to think of, no, as environmental planners. And I would like to get more people involved in this, in planning, not just for cities, but for our communities. Kaya nga yung SDG 11, diba? It says, not sustainable cities lang. It says sustainable cities and communities. Kasi we don't have to plan just for our cities, but also it has to be inclusive, it has to be safe, it has to be sustainable and resilient.
And maybe our friends coming from Facebook, if you have questions, please feel free to put them sa ating comment section with our official hashtag conservation conversations. I always mess that up. Pangatlo na to. Conservation conversation. Maybe Sir Edgar has something to say regarding that certain issue.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a big complex issue, as you were saying. But siguro I would just like to put emphasis on what you were talking about planning. It starts with planning and everything. I'd just like to reiterate. In my class, I usually inform them about the definition of planning. When you try to define planning, you always stick to the element of it, which is always future oriented. You don't plan for your past. You plan for the future. So you always look at the future context. So gusto mo ng hugot, Robbie? So that's it. So you plan for the future, not with the past. And of course, if you try to plan, you always try to make it as inclusive as possible, as already informed by our esteemed panelists as well. And siguro going back to one of your questions on the experience of abroad, putting it to the Philippine context, I think there are some initiatives actually in the Philippines for smart cities. Like we have that one in Kawayan City in Isabela, wherein which they tried to do cashless transactions. So those are actually initiatives that they try to adopt given the changing landscape of our environment. At the same time, they have this so-called smart agriculture, wherein which they try to input some aspects of digitization for our agriculture sector. Specifically, when you think of Kawayan City, it's not the urban setting that we are like thinking of. Like it's not the Manila area, it's not the Cebu City area, but they are able to integrate that to the current context of Kawayan City. So it's possible that other areas, even in the Philippines, not as urban as Metro Manila, can actually integrate these aspects. Possible siya. It's just a matter of collaborative work among different stakeholders, be it academe, at the same time research, and the local government. At the same time, you have the different sectors that is actually involved with it. So yun yung nakikita ko na very much applicable, especially sa ibang areas, not just in Metro Manila, but considering other cities or even municipalities in the country.
Sobrang na-excite ako. Like, in
Oo
my
nga.
head, pwedeng mangyari. Okay, weekend ngayon, magte-train lang ako papuntang Baguio, o kaya papunta ng Bicol, or even Cebu or Davao. Can you just
Yeah.
imagine the possibilities kung
Mhm.
nagawa ng tama yung planning? Pero, Mr. Edgar, thank you for the hugot. I appreciate that one. We got this phone-in question coming from Chewy Crisologo.
There we go.
Yep. Thank you. Our comment section nagwawala ngayon yung mga viewers po natin. Thank you to all of our pandas watching us. Okay, so the question goes, which key principles in urban development have already been worked on in Metro Manila, and which ones are the priorities as of the moment?
Maybe I could speak for the department's activities.
Yep.
So actually this NUDHF, this is not just a document. This was rolled out back in 2019 nationwide. I was part of the team that rolled this out in various places, given to LGUs and other stakeholders from Baguio City to Calamba to Davao, Iloilo, Naga City. So we have rolled out this NUDHF and imparted to them these key principles. Now for Metro Manila, and maybe not just Metro Manila, I'd like to segue or dovetail into how this was made. And this was made in consideration of two landmark acts, the Climate Change Act and the Disaster Risk Management Act. So what this means that all plans should now mainstream climate change and disaster risk management from the national plans down to the local plans. So it takes cognizance that climate change is real, disaster risk management should also be a priority, okay? Because, we're also top 3, I think, hindi na tayo malis sa top 10 of countries that are most vulnerable to natural disasters and even man-made disasters. So again, DSUD in partnership with other agencies like TILG, DNR, all of our plans and even the NDRMC, we are pushing for mainstreaming CCA or climate change adaptation and DRM or disaster risk reduction management into all our plans. So I think that's one concrete step.
That's great. Kasi every single year, prone naman talaga ang Pilipinas diba? Since geographically, it will happen. It will happen, yung mga disasters na yan and natural calamity. So it's nice to hear coming from a branch from the government na, na napaprioritize na yun. Mm-hmm. We got this question naman coming from Angelo Lantin. What can we do to make our cities more inclusive, interconnected, like what was mentioned earlier? Sir Chris?
Okay, in terms of inclusivity, let's look at which sectors of the population are we excluding? Who are the most vulnerable? And really, when we look at the urban population, 1/3 of that, or even more, are informal settlers and the urban poor. And these are the people who are living in land that they don't own because they're in the public domain. These are dangerous waterways, landslide prone areas. And they don't have any choice because they cannot afford to buy, of course, land or even housing in the city. And I think that's really one key area where the government can invest in housing for the poor in the city and not promote relocation of poor and informal settlers outside of the city. Global studies have shown that the Philippines is one of the fastest growing and fastest urbanizing countries in the world, meaning our urban population is increasing. But don't you know that the rate of growth of the use of urban land is almost double that of the rate of growth of our urban population? Meaning we are using up land for urban uses faster than our growth of the urban population. And that means urban sprawl is increasing faster than urban population growth. And that has a lot of implications in terms of inefficiency of services. Again, transportation and traffic, because people from outside of the city needs to go into the city because that's where their job is, that's where they buy, and that's where the hospitals and schools are. So, but if we keep people in the city where they live, where they work, and then that makes our city more inclusive. We won't need people going out of the city so much, and we won't have traffic so much. And also, it means that we have to invest in public housing. Actually, when we look at and Peter being in this can confirm this, but our housing budget represents a minuscule part of the national budget, 0.01%. If you compare it to Singapore, and why does Singapore have a good housing sector? Because initially, in fact, Singapore, already with a big economy, devotes 10% before of its national budget on housing, public housing, 10%. Now, I just checked again, it's 6% of the national budget compared to the Philippines, 0.01%. Not even 1%, not even 0.1%, 0.01%. So it tells you where the priorities are and why we have so much problem in terms of housing. And really that points out to the need for an honest to goodness public sector housing. For example, I know that the government is doing this now. It's really considering seriously coming up with a public rental housing program in the country, which is a big part of the housing program of Singapore and other countries. And if you do that, then that makes housing in the city more affordable for the poor Filipinos.
Wow. Yeah, actually that statement of Sir Chris answered one more of the questions in the comment section, because I was reading the comment section of Facebook Live, and there was a question about how do we address the housing backlog, and I think that's relevant, no, yung sinabi ni Sir Chris, and it's unfortunate once again that our budget for housing is only 0.01. So I hope
maybe we have a new figure on that, but yeah, that was
yeah.
It's less now. Is it less? Is it less now? It's 0.01. Right, pero ano yung updated numbers, Sir Chris?
I was gonna say nga na sana next year mas like 0.1 na siya and then maging 1, or baka pwedeng bigger naman yung itaas, pero is it lower?
I don't know, but maybe Peter has the latest figure on that.
Oh, okay. And Sir Edgar agrees to that one. Parang,
budget,
unfortunately.
Yeah, but I think, I don't know, I'm not sure. I was just talking to a colleague of mine here in the department. I think our budget is 78 billion or less. Tapos binawasan yon, tapos buti nga binalik. So, I don't know kung true tong 78 billion out of a trillion budget. So you do the math.
Wow. Okay.
And I would also like to mention pala that WWF has this One Planet City Challenge, no, where youth are being involved in the crafting of youth-led plans for developing sustainable city. So I think it has the tagline na Our City 2030, or is it different? I'm not
Yes.
sure. Pero that's basically, so it's the centerpiece of WWF's work with cities, and it aims to recognize cities that are leading the transition towards a climate resilient one planet future. So I think it was in sige, I won't mention because I'm not sure kung anong city yon, pero
I think
we
it's
held
Quezon
the
City.
event. Yeah. I was gonna say Quezon City. Yeah, I think Quezon City. So it's good. It's good to hear that we have local paano ba, leaders leading cities such as Quezon City that are employing climate resilient policies and plans and programs into their local budgeting and how they do governance, no. And I hope that, kasi I would like to point out that Quezon City is a very rich city. And not all cities have that much budget. So I hope that more assistance to smaller cities and municipalities even would I hope for more opportunities really. Kasi minsan yung problema, kaya naman, alam naman ko anong gagawin, wala lang sapat na pera to do it. So, yun nga. Going back lang dun sa budget na 0.01.
Well, I wish also that we had more time. Kasi ang sarap ng discussion, honestly, Sir Peter, Sir Edgar, Sir Chris.
Oh, yeah.
Ang ang dami ko pang gustong itanong. Pero, syempre, if you have other questions to all of our pandas watching, comment nyo lang yan. Tapos we will give you an answer immediately, right after this stream is done. But, before we let you go to our panelists, we really want to thank you. I just have this one question for everyone. Talked about big plans, talk about, big people pushing the pen. And, Kabataang Pinoy, yes, kami, wow, sanawa yung sarili ko. Kabataang Pinoy, ang pag-asa ng bayan talaga. Pero, ano ba ang dapat namin gawin? Ano ba ang kaya namin gawin? Sir Peter?
Anyone, yeah.
Anyone can answer.
Okay, so I guess final words ko na rin siguro to. So, there are a lot of urban issues. There'll be sacrifices, sufferings, and struggles. But again, I'd like to quote our national hero, whose birthday is again coming up this Saturday. Filipinos, or even the youth, don't realize that victory is a child of struggle, that joy blossoms from suffering, and redemption is a product of sacrifice. So let's do this for our country. So the youth is the hope of our future, just like Dr. Jose Rizal said.
Para sa bayan. Yeah. Para sa bayan. Gawin niyo to para sa bayan.
And then with matching flag. I love it.
Yeah.
Ano ako din? Wala ba ako?
Oh, candidate number 2. Feels like that one. Thank you so much, Sir Peter. Sir Chris.
Yes, siguro as a parang message na rin, yung political will that Peter was talking about earlier, it's not just the political will of politicians. When we talk about the body politic, the youth is part of it. And in fact, it is the biggest part of it. You just don't know how much power you have. Your voice, your vote, your participation in governance. And really, you can see that, and it has been proven a number of times, pero hindi lang siguro naka-harness to its maximum potential. Even our social media voice, di ba? Pag nagkaroon talaga ng viral na issue and then the youth speaks, our politicians listen. But hindi lang kasi ganun ka united, yung parang hindi natin na ma-maximize. But what is politics? What makes, hindi lang siya about voting eh. It's making sure that we tell our politicians, we speak as one voice as a youth, we actively involve, we take part in planning. Hindi yung, ay may plano ang gobyerno, sige nga, ano ba yun? We take part in that plan. We make sure that we are on the table and help plan our city. Because in the end, kayo yung maiiwan na titira dito sa mundong ito. Tapos na yung mga politicians na yan, and it will be the world that you inherit. And therefore, you should be part of the planning of that future. And not only in the planning, in the actual building of the future. And when you talk about building, it's not just about creating concrete buildings and roads. It's making sure that nature-based solutions become part of the plan and the design. How do we respect nature as we build? And therefore, nature should be part of the building. Not literally, but can also be literal, no? And therefore, and when everything is built, how do we animate that? By the way we live. And really, the youth we will have to look at the way we live. Are we wasteful? Do we use too much plastic? You know, the study on the World Food says 1/3 of the food that we consume are actually wasted. There's so much wastage. And if we look at how we live, how much waste do we generate? And that ends into solid waste generation. And that's why our cities are very dirty also. But that's the way we live, no? The plastics that we use. Imagine, for every coffee that we have, we need straw. For every soft drinks that we need straw. For every takeout that we have the plastic spoon and fork. Do we really need that? No. So again, demand changes in the way our services are delivered, no, products are delivered. And I like the point earlier at the start of this program about Robbie, very conscious that the deliveries at home are actually packaged in plastic. How can we make that more sustainable? Imagine the millions of deliveries done every day. And if we just make that packaging more sustainable, it's already a lot of impact in our world. So yeah, investigate the way we live every day, every minute, and check the kind of world that we are creating.
Also the carbon footprint, no?
The carbon footprint, yeah.
Daming factors involved in that one. But thank you, Sir Chris. Power to the youth, with the youth, for the youth.
Sir Edgar?
Exactly, but for me, siguro just to add on this already very rich conversation, I'm seeing youth's participation can be seen as more or less short term or long term in terms of perspective. So if you're talking about short term perspectives, I'm including myself already in the definition of youth, can actually lead and join movements in various platforms, especially now that online platform is very much in. Madali siya, accessible siya, and at the same time, a lot of you can reach a lot of audience. So we can further our knowledge base in environmental planning and all other sorts of activities that is actually relevant and timely, especially now in this kind of environment that we are living, to foster sustainable development and the likes of sustainable cities. And if you're thinking about long-term engagements, you can actually this has been said by Sir Peter already. And as said by Nina earlier, that youth are actually the torchbearers for the fulfillment of SDGs by 2030. You might want to professionalize it by engaging yourself in really creating sustainable cities by being environmental planners like Isa and Sir Peter and me. So you can actually make it as a part of your educational journey. And then you'll be able to be more informed, more knowledgeable about the things that is really making our lives more sustainable and easier for everybody. And siguro, I would just like to extend this already for my heartfelt thanks to the organizers of this for the opportunity. It's just so enjoying to be with the energy, the optimism, and adaptability of the youth. It's always inspire me and keep me holding to this belief that changes for the better is still on sight. Yun nga, palaging sinasabi natin, kabataan ng pag-asa ng bayan. But how do we move further? So, sinasabi natin, youth are like fresh clay in a mold. If we fashion them rightly by equipping them with the appropriate knowledge, skills, and even attitude towards achieving sustainable human settlements, then I can imagine a future that is bright and sustainable for everyone. So I encourage and challenge the youth to take on this call for our common and better future. Lahat tayo involved. Let us maximize youth platform, energy, and enthusiasm as we forge forward towards sustainable human settlements in the Philippines. In terms of that, siguro shameless plugging lang. So we have a forthcoming international conference on human settlements planning and development on October 20 to 22. So you might want to know more about sustainable human settlements, sustainable cities. It's for free. It's online. So you can just join us in this call for sustainable development. Yon, siguro last na lang. Sabi nga ni Daniel Burnham, I don't know if you know, so you go to just a short trivia lang. Daniel Burnham is the one who actually planned for Baguio City at kaya may Burnham Park. So he always says that you make no little plans. They have no magic to steer men's blood and probably will not themselves be realized. Instead, make big plans, aim high, and hope. In hope and work, remembering that noble logical diagram, once recorded, will not die. So yun, maraming salamat ulit.
Thank you, Sir Peter, Sir Chris, Doc Edgar. So, buti na lang nandyan kayo no, na willing i-share yung mga insights ninyo, willing turuan yung mga kabataan. Tapos meron pa tayo yung mga resources, New Urban Agenda, yung NUDHF, na pwedeng magsilbing guidepost para mahubog yung kabataan. Yung youth kasi, sila naman talaga yung future, di ba? Parang inevitable nga naman na tayo rin yung mag-create ng impact sa world natin, sa cities natin. So, very instrumental talaga yung mga youth at maganda na naituro nyo yung mga alam nyo about sustainable urban development. So, thank you, Sir Peter, Sir Chris, and Doc Edgar. So, pwede na ba nating i-wrap up yung ating third episode ng ConCon? Robbie, Iza, may sasabihin ka ba?
Definitely. But you know what? Father's Day is just around the corner. So, we just want to say na ang ganda kasi no paghambing sa Filipino. Pag father ka, ikaw ay haligi ng tahanan. And to our strong environmental and sustainable pillars of the country, to Sir Peter, Sir Chris, Sir Edgar, maraming salamat po coming from the WWF-Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you. And grabe, sobrang bitin. I don't know. Ako nabitin ako. Ang dami ko pang tanong eh.
Ang dami ko pang tanong. Ito na notebook ko.
Oh, wow.
I also have
Nakalista na.
Nakalista pala tayo lahat eh. Marami natin mga notes dito.
Email na lang natin sila. And siguro yung audience natin, if you still have burning questions, just comment it down on our Facebook Live, and maybe our PR team, our social media team rather, could I don't know, send to the speakers to answer. I don't know how to do that, but yeah, hopefully. So thank you once again. Thank you very much to Dr. Edgar Reyes Jr. of the SERPCHE UPLB, Sir Chris Rollo of UN Habitat, thank you, and of course, ENP Peter Frahinal of the HSUD. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you.
Nina, take it home.
Okay, so that wraps up our third episode of ConCon. So sa audience natin, stay tuned for more exciting live streams with the NYC, National Youth Council, and the months to come. So this has been Mina Lim of the WWF-Philippines National Youth Council.
And for sure, I am certain that we were able to inspire everyone to pursue this more sustainable lifestyle as we work together in building a climate resilient future for everyone. Remember, together possible. Ako po si Robert Domingo, Filipino, a planner, and a citizen of the better world.
Yes, and again, thank you to everyone. And I hope for a part 2 of this discussion, or maybe we could head on to other opportunities not to discuss this very relevant topic, especially now. So, and this has been Iza Nazal Habonal, a government administrator and an environmental planner. Now signing off. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.